Uh-oh, we got a moron here.
Presenting the distinguished international news commentator and foreign correspondent,
Smaulgld. This has been an extraordinary week in world affairs.
Now I told Hillary Clinton that that's moronic.
Hello and welcome to Smaulgld's Moronica for the week ended July 1st, 2018. The week's news that made you scratch your head, cringe, or just say, "That's moronic, this just in." Uh-oh. Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, says Canada will take refugees banned by the United States. Also, Justin Trudeau says the Canadian government is taking its cross-border trade disputes with the U.S. up a notch, unveiling a final list of $16.6 billion worth of American imports that will be hit with Canadian retaliatory tariffs. We will revisit these decisions in about 6 months or maybe sooner. Who knew? Uh-oh. Donald Trump says the EU was set up to take advantage of the United States. Now, back in 1957, the EU was founded to guarantee the free movement of goods, capital, services, and labor, which equals taking advantage of the United States. Uh-oh, Bernie Sanders back on Moronica in the 1%. Bernie Sanders is now in the 1% officially. We've mentioned this before, but it is now official 2 years in a row. His income has crossed the 7-figure mark. He is now in the 1% in this country. I'm owning more than $1 million for the second year in a row, and that's a tribute to socialism and the governments of Venezuela. And if you don't believe it, you don't know how to add up things. Bernie math. There we go. Bernie showing off his math skills, not just with respect to his income, but at a book party in D.C. He said, "In many ways, we did win the 2016 election." I don't know what ways those were, but we'll be sure to hear from Bernie again in future episodes of Smaulgld's Moronica. Now, restaurant chasing. That is the new sport across America. Chasing White House officials out of restaurants is the right thing to do. That's a Washington Post editorial explaining that screw civility, that's just a luxury for pundits. The real people got to get in there and they got to chase people out of restaurants. Choice is yours. You either can debate somebody or just chase them out of a restaurant. Don't write. I'd like to see this guy who wrote the editorial. Of course, he would probably claim that he's immune to being chased out of restaurants because he's only he's only writing editorials. You can't chase him out of a restaurant. But anyone else, well, they deserve it. Uh-oh, we got morons here. Restaurant chasing. Here's Donnie Dope. Now, this guy, if you vote for Trump, he says you're the bad guy. Basically, again, no thought put behind this. Anyone who disagrees with me is the bad guy. You don't understand. We can't just say it's Trump. If you vote for him, you're the bad guy. Then you're ripping children from parents' arms if you vote for Trump. But what if Trump stops children from being ripped from parents' arms? Are you now the good guy? This idea that somehow by connection that you're responsible for everything that someone else does is indeed moronic. And there's Donnie Dope. Ice Terror. Uh-oh. Cynthia Nixon. I think she was a minor player in... I didn't watch the show, Sex and the City. But there she is. Somehow she's managed to get herself into politics. And she's running for governor of New York. And she says that ICE is a terrorist organization. And it must be abolished. Uh-oh. Well, a lot of stories going on about this separation of children at the border. And the underlying issue isn't moronic, but the understanding that most people have of it is quite moronic. First of all, ICE doesn't do any of the separation. That is the border police that do that, not ICE. But just a minor detail. The idea that they can make up magazine covers and use a child who was not separated from her mother, but was actually with her mother, and then interpose Donald Trump and make it look like he's telling her, "Good luck, young lady. Welcome to America." When indeed this woman here brought this little girl to the United States, went to the border, did not get separated, and this gentleman here didn't know about it. Guess who he is? The father. She left with her and left him with the other kids. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Here you go. Well, we have the guy responsible for the Bloomberg terminals, former Mayor Bloomberg. He's mulling a run for president. Gulp, gulp, gulp. Maybe he can ban the big gulp nationwide. A royal decree. Uh-oh, this is from a king. I'll think of the irony of that. A king. Dear Mr. Trump, this is from the Netherlands. You'll see this beautiful building. It is the International Court of Justice in our residency, The Hague, the Netherlands. It's waiting for you. It might take a while, but it's waiting. Okay. Maxine Waters is making a showing. Uh-oh. She has no sympathy for Trump administration officials and that people are going to protest and harass them. And she called also for harassing them, not just in restaurants, but I think she mentioned gas stations and other public places. And the message she wants to send to them is, well, first of all, you create a crowd and then you tell them you're not wanted around here anymore, and until they get the message that they can't hang with the president. Again, it's a congresswoman leading the resistance. And there she is. People should turn against and harass those with the Trump administration that defend Trump's agenda. That's the new way of protesting. If Obama was elected or Bush was elected, whoever it was, all you have to do is harass people in restaurants. And you know what? That's not going to work. So I guess they're going to have to do more. Whew, okay. And of course, Donald Trump, not one to shy away from this type of lowbrow fighting, called Congresswoman Maxine Waters, quote, an extraordinary low IQ person, has become, together with Nancy Pelosi, the face of the Democratic Party. She has just called for harm to supporters, of which there are many, of the Make America Great movement. Be careful what you wish for. Max. Mad Max indeed. Now, this is taking up, this is a good portion of Moronica this week, this restaurant chasing and harassing people in public. Michael, oh, it's Michelle. I don't know what her name is. Anyway, someone wrote an editorial in the New York Times saying to the people that are complaining that this is not civil, no, she says, we're not suffering from a breakdown of civility. This is a breakdown of democracy. Basically, when your party's candidate or candidates lose at the poll, that's a breakdown of democracy. And, well, you can't expect everyone to be civil now, can you? I mean, you do see these people in restaurants. I mean, they're eating, aren't they? I mean, should they be allowed to eat in a restaurant? No way. Throw them out. Now, I don't take offense. If someone wants to, if I owned a restaurant, and I probably would take anyone's business unless they were a public health hazard or dangerous to other patrons. I really don't care what they think. As long as they're in there and they're going to pay, I would serve them. But I can understand if the Red Hen woman wanted to make a stand. I don't think you're making any stand, but you can make a stand that way. You could say, I don't want that person in my restaurant, and ask them to leave. The mistake she made, though, was trying to prevent that party from eating elsewhere in the town and chasing her outside and doing the Maxine Waters, getting a crowd around those people, which of course the guy who owned the bed and breakfast across the street wasn't too appreciative, because he wanted that business. He had no such qualms. He may not have liked the Sanders party. In fact, what's interesting is the Sanders party, absent Sarah Sanders, the family, is against Donald Trump. So the whole thing is ridiculous. Where's somebody going to eat? But also what's ridiculous is the woman who owns the Red Hen restaurant is supposed to be representing all of the other merchants in the area, and she basically is chasing business away from someone she's supposed to be helping and representing. But of course she would do that as she's ridding the community of this scourge of paying customers that happen to work for the Trump administration. This one comes from us from Daniel Acaye, very astute professor. He notes that in the Spanish town of Cordoba, which is in the south of España in Spain, they're going to start charging businesses that use gazebos and sun shields a shade tax. Mr. Lacalle, actually he calls himself, he is Spanish, but he calls himself Daniel Lacalle, but I like to say Daniel Lecalle. He calls it shady tax hell, and this levy that Cordoba wants to put on its shopkeepers for if they have the audacity to provide shade on public walkways. If anyone's ever been to Cordoba, you might as well be on the equator in the middle of the summer. It is very, very hot there. Here we go. Uh-oh. Justice Sonia Sotomayor. She slams the Supreme Court decision on Trump's anti-Muslim ban, saying it masquerades behind a facade of national security concerns. Ms. Sotomayor, you're not able to distinguish politics from being a Supreme Court justice. That decision should have been 9-0. You can disagree with it, but the concept of a Supreme Court justice isn't to get a result that you want, isn't supposed to be that you're a member of the resistance. It is you're supposed to interpret the statute or the declaration that was made by the president and compare it to whether he had the statutory authority to do so. He did. You don't like him, he's racist. The statute, you can interpret it as racist. But when you start bringing in newspaper articles, things that he said on the campaign trail, you're moving outside of the scope of being a jurist and you're playing politics. It is fair enough for anyone to make the connection that Trump's ban may look like it's masquerading behind the facade of national security concerns, but not a judge. That is not the judge's job. The judge's job. Who's the moron? The judge's job to make that type of statement, and it undermines the Supreme Court. But the president is undermining the presidency. Okay. Uh-oh. James Clapper, former director of national intelligence. James Clapper says family separations hurt the U.S. international image. Well, so does lying. And also, these family separations have been going on for a long time. And you would think someone with the ability to have intelligence on this stuff, he might have known this was happening long before Trump was doing it. Sources say, we keep hearing sources say, experts say. Anytime a journalist wants to get a story out there, sometimes they may have somebody might have told them something, but you really can't trust the story unless they can trace it back to somebody. And here you go. Trump's chief of staff, John Kelly, doesn't enjoy the job and believes Trump has stopped listening to him. Persons close to the White House say. So there's a person close to the White House or someone familiar with the matter. Well, we haven't seen anything. A lot of these stories about this is going to happen because sources say or people familiar with the matter, they turn out never to happen, but at least they get the story out there. Well, actually, it said people familiar with the matter in this one, too. Jimmy Fallon. I feel sorry for Jimmy Fallon. He seems to be a nice guy. He doesn't seem to have the spirit in him to go ballistic and get outraged every time something happens, every tweet Trump makes or something. He just seems to be a nice guy with a sense of humor. Well, they're not leaving him alone. He had Trump on his show, and all the they should stay off these shows, but they go on them. They've been going on them ever since Bill Clinton went on Late Night Arsenio and played the sax. But anyway, the presidential campaigns go on them. Hillary went on them. Trump went on them. And Jimmy Fallon did what a lot of people were always wondering, whether Trump's hair was real. So he asked if he could touch it, and he tousled it a bit. Totally harmless. Well, again, this is something to create, oh my God, he's been humanized. Yeah, Jimmy Fallon, you're evil for even doing that. No, really. You could be against Trump, but Fallon tussling his hair doesn't create anything. But people got outraged by it. So, uh-oh, we got a moron here. Jimmy Fallon now apologized for something he did almost 2 years ago. I made a mistake. I'm sorry if I made anyone mad. And I'm looking back, I would do it differently. I didn't mean to humanize him. What kind of nonsense is that? I wouldn't do my job. I wouldn't try to be funny. I would just, if he was there, I'd tell him you're Hitler. What kind of nonsense is that? So, of course, Donald Trump says Jimmy Fallon is now whimpering to all that he did that famous hair show with me. where he seriously messed up my hair and that he would have now done it differently because he's said to have humanized me, he is taking heat. He called and said, monster ratings, be a man, Jimmy. That is the other thing. And Trump gets involved in this stupidity. This truly is, everyone's being, it is idiotic. Well, no, that's already a movie. It's moronic. It is Moronica how we've done, that this is an issue, that he was on a TV show 2 years ago, and people are actually paying attention to this, and he tousled his hair, and somehow that humanized him, and now Jimmy Fallon is really sorry. You know, you're true confessions. Things you could have done differently. That one is moronic. All right. Well, here you go. This one should have been under the restaurant chases, but John Legend, I don't know who he is. He's got a great name, though. He's a legend. But in any event, he says, let's make a deal with the Trump administration. So now he's representing, I don't know who he's representing, but he's going to make a deal. Reunite all those families immediately, and you can go out to eat wherever the boop you want. Well, thank you for that. He's going to make a deal, and he's going to let people eat wherever they want. And, of course, he's speaking on behalf of whoever he's speaking on behalf of, but he's also speaking on behalf of restaurant owners and anyone else who operates an eating establishment, because as soon as the families are reunited, then people can go eat wherever they want. But that doesn't make sense, because there's a lot of other things that Trump does that maybe you should keep that option going. Because if he doesn't do other things, you're going to let the Trump people eat somewhere? Not very smart, John Legend. Not good deal making. Border control versus ICE. This one, Gillibrand. Now, she was a little Clinton acolyte. She was following him around, getting their endorsements, and then she realized, oh, no. Hillary Clinton was an enabler of Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was a sexual harasser. The hell with them. Well, now she's also calling. So now if she gets elected senator again, well, she has her say, she can help abolish ICE. Again, I don't know how Cynthia Nixon, who is would want to be the governor of New York, would have anything to do with abolishing ICE, but these two women are fighting the resistance. Uh-oh, Joseph Stiglitz. Now, this guy won a Nobel Prize. I don't know for what, something economic. I think it was about wealth disparity or wealth inequality or something that Bernie Sanders would like. He said, American democracy is on the brink. It's always democracy. It's not democracy. First of all, the United States isn't set up as a democracy. It is a democratic republic. Democracy is mob rule. The U.S. Supreme Court has handed out a series of rulings favorable to corporations over workers and right-wing extremists over the majority of Americans. This is a Nobel Prize winner. What right-wing extremists over the majority of Americans? Now, you'd have to say, well, maybe that's the travel ban. Now, the travel ban was no different than, as the Supreme Court pointed out, other travel bans, basically from the same countries, although Jimmy Carter's was Panama. Favoring corporations over workers, well, if he's talking about the union issue, that applied to state-run unions not being allowed to charge non-union members union dues. So I don't know what he's talking about. He probably doesn't either. But again, Nobel Prize thinking right there. Uh-oh. Now this guy, Cory Booker, he takes drama lessons. We must fight for those of us who believe that love is love, is love, is love, is love, is love. I don't know what that means. I don't think he knows either. Uh-oh. This one, I don't even know why this is news. U.S. ambassador to Estonia resigned in frustration over Trump. No, he probably resigned out of boredom, because what the heck do you do when you represent Estonia, when you go to Estonia? Well, he's gone, and I'm sure there's plenty of people who would love that sinecure, or sinecure, whatever it's the word of the day, which is a job that pays well and requires little or no work. Those jobs you hand out like an ambassador job, especially to a country of limited significance. I'm not saying Estonia is of no significance. People there, I'm sure, are fine people, and they view themselves as, as important as anyone else on earth. But that's not the point. To the United States international affairs, Estonia probably isn't that important. One could argue it's near Russia and has some geopolitical significance. The point is, there are plenty of people who are qualified and would like to be ambassador to Estonia, and I'm sure he will be replaced right away. Now, experts say, we got to leave with this. Donald Trump went over and talked to Little Rocket Man, and Little Rocket Man looked dotard in the eye and said, look, we're going to denuclearize the peninsula. And Trump says we had a great relationship, great chemistry, and that's going to happen. And of course, if that were to happen, that would be a disaster, because that would mean there would be a success. Well, it looks like Little Rocket Man is hiding, and according to what some experts say, that North Korea is still expanding its nuclear facilities. Well, that about does it for Moronica. Please join us each and every night for a Smaulgld live stream, and later in today we will have, in case you missed it, top gold, silver, and crypto stories for the week ended July 1st, 2018. Thanks for joining me.